In this video, I want to discuss the concept of observational learning. I'll assume that you understand operant conditioning and classical conditioning to some extent. For example, you probably understand that if people or animals are rewarded for some behaviour, they're more likely to repeat this behaviour in the future, called operant conditioning. Conversely, if people or animals are punished in response to some behaviour, they're less inclined to repeat this behaviour in the future. Now, the question I now want to introduce is, do people or animals have to experience these rewards or punishment themselves? Or can they learn merely by watching other people or animals rewarded or punished, called observational learning? And if so, in which circumstances do they learn by merely watching other people or animals rewarded or punished? Now, you might assume that we obviously learn by watching other people. Even young children will sometimes mimic their parents and, for example, stick out their tongue when their mother or father sticks out their tongue. Likewise, people will sometimes mimic the fashion or phrases of their favourite celebrities. Unfortunately, they seldom mimic the fashion of their favourite lecturers, because that would be unfortunate. But actually, these examples could be ascribed to a blend of mimicking and operant conditioning. So to illustrate, someone might watch a celebrity express the phrase, "Hello, cello," on TV, and next they might mimic this phrase instinctively and then hear laughter in response. So consequently, because they felt rewarded, they might often repeat the phrase, "Hello, cello," in the future. However, this learning can be ascribed to a blend of mimicking and operant conditioning. In essence, they mimicked the phrase, "Hello, cello," and then they repeated this phrase in the future merely because they themselves were rewarded. The question, however, is whether they would repeat this phrase in the future if only someone else had been rewarded instead. In other words, can people learn without receiving rewards and punishments themselves? Of course, this type of learning would be very helpful to society. So to illustrate, people could learn to inhibit a behaviour without experiencing the pain or punishment themselves. In addition, many people could learn at the same time by merely watching one person experiencing a reward or punishment. So, a researcher called Albert Bandura conducted a series of studies to assess whether humans can learn by watching other people receive rewards or punishments. In one classic study, children watched a video of an adult playing with a large doll called Bobo. And Bobo was specifically designed to incline when hit and then return to a standing position. In particular, the children watched the adult act aggressively towards Bobo. The adult shouted at the doll, hit the doll with a mallet, and so forth. In addition, in some videos, the adult was rewarded with food in response to this behaviour. Now, in other videos, the adult was punished and told, "Don't do it again," harshly in response to this behaviour. And finally, the behaviour and memory of the children were assessed. In particular, the children were granted an opportunity to interact with Bobo themselves, and then later the children were asked to simulate what they'd watched in the film. So what did Bandura discover? Well, first, the behaviour of children depended on whether the adult was rewarded or punished. If the adult was rewarded, the child emulated the adult and thus acted aggressively towards Bobo. If the adult was punished, the child did not emulate the adult and so did not act aggressively towards Bobo. And these results thus substantiate observational learning. That is, children were more likely to emulate a person whose behaviour had been rewarded rather than punished. Second, the memory of children didn't depend on whether the adult was rewarded or punished. That is, whether the children were able to demonstrate what they'd watched was independent of whether the adult was rewarded or punished. So therefore, observing whether someone is rewarded or punished affects the behaviour, but not the memory of the children. But when is observational learning most effective? When does watching someone rewarded or punished affect behaviour? Well, studies have uncovered many conditions or characteristics that affect the likelihood of observational learning. So for example, individuals are more likely to emulate someone who is rewarded if they're similar to this person, if this person is likable, and if this person is high in status. Presumably they're more likely to direct their attention to this person or feel a sense of connection to this individual. People are also more inclined to emulate someone when they feel moderately alert or aroused. If they're not alert enough, they don't direct enough attention to this person. If they're too alert, their attention is almost too scattered to observe the act properly. Furthermore, some people are more receptive to observational learning than other people. But nevertheless, observational learning is very widespread. For example, observational learning, although sometimes not as rapid, has been shown in children with a range of developmental issues, such as autism spectrum disorder. Indeed, variants of observational learning have been observed in some animals, such as pigeons, dolphins, and monkeys. Monkeys even learn to emulate humans on some tasks, such as opening a box.